Hey guys, this is Father Brad Doyle, and you're watching Coffee Talk, where we drink coffee and talk about Jesus. Adoration. It can seem kind of intimidating if we haven't had an experience with it. So first, what is adoration? Adoration is when we go before Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament in the Eucharist. Usually it's in a monstrance. Monstrance sounds like a weird word, but it just means to show, right? Demonstrate. It comes from the same Latin root, to show. And what the monstrance or the receptacle, the holder, is doing is showing us the Lord for an extended period of time. Sometimes there's 24-hour 7 days a week, 365 adoration chapels where someone's there adoring Jesus, praying with the Lord before him for every hour, and it's perpetual adoration. Sometimes a church will do like an hour of adoration. Back in the day, there was a 40 hours devotion, which was traveling adoration. It would spend 40 hours at a parish, then move to another parish. All the same thing, which is adoration, spending time with Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament in prayer. Now, here are my thoughts about adoration and why we really should have this as some part of our spiritual practice as Catholics. Number one, adoration tells us the truth about what we believe in the Eucharist. There's a lot of different denominations, a lot of different churches that say they believe in the Eucharist or the true presence of Jesus in the Eucharist, but a lot of times this might be a concept of consubstantiation. That what the Eucharist is bread, and alongside is Christ's presence. That is not what we believe as Catholics. We believe in transubstantiation, that the substance of bread goes across, it goes away, and the accents remain: what looks like bread, what tastes like bread, what looks like wine, what tastes like wine. And the substance actually is, what this is Jesus Christ, body, blood, soul, and divinity. And why does adoration expose the truth of what we believe about the Eucharist? Is because we sit before, in adoration, we sit before the Eucharist and we adore. Something we only do to God, right? Something we only give to God. We don't give it to Mary. We don't give it to other human beings. We don't give it to football. We don't give it to celebrities. Adoration. We adore God. And if we are sitting before Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament, before the Eucharist, adoring the Eucharist, we either believe that it's the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus, or we're idolaters. There's no middle ground. It's not a symbol. There's no place for it to be just merely a symbol. And so it exposes quickly our theology. It reminds me of a story about Flannery O'Connor. Flannery O'Connor is a Southern author, a great Catholic woman convert, and she didn't really fit in with the women of her time in the South. She would sometimes go with them to luncheons, and one luncheon they were having nice conversation about the Eucharist. They're trying to include her, and they were, I believe they were Anglicans she was with, and she was a Catholic convert. And they started talking about the symbolism of the Eucharist and how nice the symbol was, and definitely not believing the true presence. And they try to include Flannery. And Flannery was known of being kind of brash and in your face. So she was sitting there shy in the background. They said, "Flannery, what do you think about the symbol of the Eucharist?" She says, "If it's a symbol, to hell with it." Didn't really fly well at the luncheon as they were eating salads. But she meant what she said. And the point is that it's either nothing, it's just a symbol, and it's bread, or it's Jesus and the Blessed Sacrament. It's truly his presence. And adoration exposes that in us. Another point I want to make is that some people say that adoration, this personal prayer of going before the Lord, takes away from the Mass. And it can. If our spirituality is just about my personal prayer, my personal time with Jesus, and when it's not connected to the Mass, maybe if we're not going to Mass, or we don't realize that it flows from the Mass, then it can take the place. But most of the time, it doesn't. Because really, and this is kind of an analogy I've heard once and always use, it is a part of the Mass. It's that part of the Mass called the elevation. You know the part where the priest, like me, I'm saying Mass and I say, "This is my body," and then I elevate the Eucharist. It's called the elevation. It's almost like we took that part of the Mass and we freeze framed it and we stopped it. And people were like, we want to adore Jesus, but we didn't have enough time. We only had 2 seconds because Father was too quick, or Father's arm started to hurt and he can't hold up the Eucharist for that long. That would be, too much. We need to go on. We need to say the Mass and go out into the world. So how do we adore God? It's almost like we took that part of the elevation, and instead of the hands of the priest, we use the monstrance, or the receptacle. So it is connected to the Mass. We don't have the Eucharist without the Mass. And so we must understand that, but it's also the reality that adoration is not apart from the Mass, it flows from it. Next, another thought I had was that Jesus told us to. He told us to have quiet time with him. I gave you a little extra there. Matthew chapter 26, verse 40 says this. Jesus is praying in the Garden of Gethsemane. The apostles are supposed to be staying up and watching and praying with him, being with the Lord in his time of need. And he came to the disciples and found them sleeping, and he said to Peter, "So could you not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit is indeed willing, but the flesh is weak." So this little bitty vignette, this little moment from Jesus' life, we're about to celebrate in Easter, or maybe we already have by the time this airs. But the Triduum, the Holy Thursday Mass, at the very end, we have that Eucharistic procession, and a lot of churches say, "Stay with me, remain here with me, watch and pray, watch and pray." We have that time of adoration at the end of the Mass on Holy Thursday. And it's this moment, Jesus saying, watch and pray with me. We need silence. The Lord knows that. We can't always be doing and going and doing things and being pragmatic. We must be like Mary, who sits at the feet of Jesus. And adoration is a great moment to do that. If you have an adoration chapel near you, you can go. If you're dealing with anything, if you want to give thanks to God, if you just want to be with the Lord, he asks us, can you spend an hour with me? And this is a good way to do that. It's also a sort of a pilgrimage. I kind of came up with this and my own thoughts and my own prayers about this. We need pilgrimage. Can all of us go to Jerusalem? No. Some of us don't like planes. That's okay. You don't have to go to Jerusalem. Can all of us go to Rome? No, not all of us will have the money to go to Rome, and you don't need to. It's good if you can. But we all need pilgrimage. We all need to step out of the normal, everyday routine of our lives. We all need to walk somewhere. We all need to drive somewhere. We all need to take particular intentional steps towards doing something different. It's called a pilgrimage. We invest something, time, money, energy. But here in adoration, we have to go somewhere. We have to go to an adoration chapel. We have to go to a parish that's doing adoration on a Friday or whatever times it is. It's a pilgrimage. We're putting ourselves out there and we're meeting Christ, who is really present. So we're going to a place. And that's a good spiritual practice of pilgrimage. Treat adoration like a pilgrimage. You prepare. Right? The pilgrims back in the day used to pack their packs and bags and their camels. They got on the road and they had sacrifice and they ate gross camp food on the way to Jerusalem and all that. It's not as intense, but going to adoration, you have to pack your Bible. You have to get in the car. You have to get gas and you have to make it to the adoration chapel. It's investing your body and time and energy into a spiritual practice, and that's helpful. I'll end with a quote from Pope Benedict XVI. And this was a talk he gave at World Youth Day in Cologne, Germany. And he was talking about adoration and the etymology of adoration, the truth of what adoration is. And he said this: the Latin word for adoration is ad oratio, ad, right, toward. And oratio, it has to do with prayer, or the face, or the mouth, speaking a prayer. And so he says, mouth-to-mouth contact, a kiss, an embrace, and hence ultimately love. Submission becomes union because he to whom we submit is love. In this way, submission acquires a meaning because it does not impose anything on us from the outside, but liberates us deep within. This is the essence of adoration. It's not about fulfilling an obligation, really, because none of us really have an obligation to do adoration. You go to Mass, you have obligation to worship God on Sunday. But it's an invitation from the Lord himself to this intimate encounter. As Pope Benedict points out, ad oratio, mouth-to-mouth contact. It should conjure up images of Genesis, where he breathes into the nostrils of Adam and Eve when he creates them. And that's the kind of relationship Jesus wants with us. Intimate, not far and distant, but face to face. Adoration. Try it out. Go to your nearest chapel and see how it goes. God bless.